Allow me once more to take the opportunity to welcome you, Minister, and your delegation to South Africa, and to thank you for honoring my rather short notice invitation to visit our country. I took advantage of your presence in Namibia to invite you to just pass by South Africa before returning home. I wish to express our good wishes to you and your country as you prepare for the presidential and parliamentary elections, which will be held in June 2023 this year. South Africa is always excited about elections because they're such a new phenomenon for us because we didn't have freedom for so many decades. So when we hear that there are elections, we're always excited and hope that they go well because democracy is so critical to the African continent. We believe the elections of June 2023 are an important milestone for Sierra Leone as they demonstrate your country and government's commitment to advancing and entrenching democracy. The elections take place after elections are held in Nigeria in February, just tomorrow, 25th of February, and your own election in June will be followed by elections in Liberia in October 2023. So it's election season in West Africa, and we're just watching and hoping that everything goes well. The elections provide an opportunity for all these countries, our sister countries, to consolidate democracy in West Africa in line with our own organization's Constitutive Act, as well as the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance, and of course respond to the aspirations outlined in our own Agenda 2063, which spells out the Africa we want and does speak to good governance, democracy, respect for human rights and freedoms, to justice, and respect for the rule of law. Minister, South Africa and Sierra Leone exchanged diplomatic notes on the establishment of diplomatic relations in August 1998. There's a lot of work that I believe we need to do to further strengthen our bilateral and economic relations. We are committed to strengthening these, and I hope that your visit here will serve as a catalyst for further program cooperation between our two countries. I wish to propose that we consider the establishment of a joint cooperation commission between our two countries, and I wish to propose the following key sectors as the key focus of our JCC once established. I believe we should focus on mining and mining development, on energy, on infrastructure development, on agriculture, with an emphasis on increasing production as well as developing agro-processing capabilities, on higher education and research development, and on arts and culture with a strong emphasis on developing film industries in both our countries. In order to make progress on these key sectors and on the JCC, I would like us to agree that we direct our officials to proceed to meet and to develop a program of action which they must present to us by December 2023. I just feel we need to be action-oriented and not be general in our aspirations. We're also very keen, Minister, to increase trade and investment between our two countries. I've been informed that the Honorary Consul of Sierra Leone in South Africa has already had meetings with my department and has provided a list of investment opportunities that are available in Sierra Leone and has invited the participation of South African private sector companies. Although I'm not the trade minister, I have made it my business to invite delegations of business persons to accompany me when I visit various countries, and I certainly would be keen to do that with respect to Sierra Leone. We have had companies in the private sector in South Africa, including the financial sector, that have expressed interest in exploring opportunities in line with your own country's national development plan. And hopefully you will meet some of these businesses today. We understand that there are a range of investment opportunities in the NDP of Sierra Leone, including in mining, in oil and gas, in infrastructure, and in agriculture. I believe that South African public and private entities have capacity to invest in all these sectors. We have many private sector companies that hold large amounts of capital, and we've been trying to interest them in investing in African infrastructure. So I'm sure we could persuade them with the right conditions to make these resources available. I am pleased that we do have a number of areas of cooperation with Sierra Leone in a number of areas. For example, our Deputy Minister, Mashego Dlamini, visited Sierra Leone to present our donation of COVID-19 vaccines, and I was pleased that all those vaccines are vaccines manufactured in South Africa. She informed me that she did have the opportunity to meet with you, and you agreed together that we should strengthen bilateral relations. As at February 2023, as you will recall, at the African Union summit meeting just last week, we learned that 46 out of 54 signatories to the AFCFTA have deposited instruments of ratification. So 85% of the countries on the continent are now part of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. We're really thrilled that Sierra Leone is one of this 85%. We believe this paves the way for improving trade and investment within the continent and for growing productive and industrial capacity on our continent. One of the biggest challenges, as you and I have discussed, Minister, is that of Africa achieving peace and security. All of us need to collaborate on matters of peace and security on the continent. We are extremely concerned about the security situation in the Sahel and stand ready to assist wherever we can. We have tried to provide some modest humanitarian aid to the Sahel region, and if there's more we can do, I really would be ready to be advised by you as to how we might be of assistance. The violent activities we've seen in the Sahel region are a clear violation of the Lome Declaration of 2000 on unconstitutional changes of government on our continent. We must fight against the resurgence of coups, as this really detracts from our Agenda 2063. My country fully supports the efforts of ECOWAS to restore democracy to Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. I'm also really thrilled, Minister, that you and I today will sign an agreement between the government of the Republic of South Africa and the government of the Republic of Sierra Leone on the waiver of visa requirements for holders of diplomatic service or official passports. This is a positive development, a step toward free movement on the African continent, and a step toward strengthening relations between our two countries. I'm looking forward to South Africa seeing many more diplomats, ministers, and government officials working on bilateral collaboration due to the free movement that will be provided by this agreement. Let me then conclude by saying I stand ready to work with you, Minister, to deepen our country's bilateral cooperation. And in answer to the question you posed earlier today about Security Council reform, we are fully behind the efforts of President Bio as the chair of C10, we believe UN reform has become urgently necessary, and we believe Africa must not tire from insisting that the Security Council has proven to us that its current composition and role is not suited to the era we are in, and thus reform of the Security Council, and I would say broadly of the mechanisms of United Nations, is urgently necessary and is a matter all of us should work speedily toward. Welcome, my dear brother minister and your colleagues. I thank you. And I now hand over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Your Excellency, Foreign Minister Dr. Pandor, for the invite to hold high-level political consultations to strengthen our long-standing bilateral relations. Your Excellency, for want of time, please permit me to stand on existing protocols. But let me also use this opportunity to thank you, and through you, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the Republic of South Africa, for the very warm hospitality accorded to my delegation and I since our arrival in your historic and beautiful city. You know, driving from the airport to the hotel, I cannot help but think of Freetown, Sierra Leone. The hills and the coastal views, very similar, picturesque, beautiful, quintessentially beautiful and appealing. So thank you very much, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, as you know, and as you rightly stated, Sierra Leone and South Africa, we've had very long-standing and cordial relations. And of course, as you mentioned again, supported the end of apartheid in South Africa. And in fact, the liberation struggles in Namibia and Zimbabwe for the political independence and self-determination of these two countries. Our leaders in Sierra Leone were very clear that in the spirit of Pan-African unity and solidarity, we have to support each other to ensure that every territory remains free, politically governed by the people in those territories. So, Excellency, we are very pleased that we have made that progress. But also, I take your kind words of support and encouragement for the effort to consolidate democracy in Sierra Leone today. We will hold, I want to reassure you, Your Excellency, a free, fair, transparent, credible, democratic election. His Excellency, the President Dr. Julius Maada Bio is committed to the rule of law and democratic consolidation, because he believes that without democratic consolidation, there will be no peace in the country. And if there is no peace, there will be no development in the country. What is unique about Sierra Leone is that Sierra Leone has defied all the usual debates and discourses around the conflict trap. Sierra Leone today has been able to hold 4 successful, peaceful, democratic elections since the end of the bloody civil war. And it includes, in fact, the transfer of power from incumbent government to opposition political parties, something that is real in the continent of Africa. So we're very pleased that we are putting our mark on democratic consolidation in the continent. So I want to reassure you that we will do that as the President has directed. So today, this high-level bilateral discussion provides the opportunity to strengthen and deepen our long-standing relationship, not only at the bilateral but multilateral levels as well. I want us to use this opportunity to begin to identify immediately long-term and short-term investment opportunities. This is something I'm really keen on. So let me reassure you, and the President has asked me to communicate that the government of Sierra Leone intends to open a High Commission in South Africa as soon as possible. And we have demonstrated that commitment by taking the initial step of opening the Sierra Leone Honorary Consulate in Johannesburg. And of course, on your part as well, I want to commend the appointment of your South African Honorary Consul in Freetown. We believe that having High Commission operating fully functional, it will serve as the diplomatic hub for Sierra Leone's international relations and cooperation for the Southern African region. And I want to take this opportunity to commend you for the support in establishing our consulate, but also in the appointment of your own consulate. And that is why I am very pleased, and I look forward to us signing the agreement on the visa waiver. These are all part of the process, is signing visa waiver for diplomatic and service passport holders between our two countries will go a long way to create the opportunities for the free movement of diplomatic and government officials in both countries and serve as the basis to encourage more trade and investment in our countries as well. And here, let me, Your Excellency, commend the leadership of your High Commissioner, Grace Mason. She has made this her single purpose of late, and almost in all the discussions, her one topic has always been, we have to progress on making sure that the officials of both countries are able to move freely. So without putting your High Commissioner on the spot, I just want to recognize her diligence and professionalism in making sure that we achieve this. This is important. This is really about credible representation of a country and identifying one key aspect that we can do. This is a quick win, and the quick win has long-term benefits in consolidating our relationship. Your Excellency, I'm also very pleased to hear about your proposal that we use all of these positive developments to progress to the next stage of developing a framework to establish a joint commission for cooperation. I think this is the right one. And His Excellency the President has mandated that I should work with you that we progress it. I'm also very pleased that you've already outlined 6 core areas of mining and mining development, energy, infrastructure, agriculture, higher education, science and research, cultural diplomacy. These are exactly the key areas, as if we have compared notes. But that is the commonality of our interest and our development trajectory. So, Your Excellency, I also very much buy into your time frame. So rather than saying with a slight moderation, Your Excellency, for your consideration, that we say 6 months to commemorate the 25th anniversary. So within 6 months, that is August. I think our teams will be able to provide the blueprint for this framework agreement. So one aspect of the 6 areas will be, the additional aspect of the 6 areas will be the 7th, that's political cooperation agreement. And I'm sure with our teams, we can then agree on the modalities of how to start the process, and by the 30th of August, the framework agreement will have been submitted for consideration. Your Excellency, this is the best way to move. There are additional areas that we will want to look into the JCC, for example, within the framework of the political cooperation between our 2 ministries. We've just established, the President has just commissioned the first ever Foreign Service Academy Diplomatic Training Center. It's an ultra-modern, multi-million infrastructure thanks to China aid, and we are looking to using it to serve the training and capacity building and professionalism of our foreign ministries across the continent as a center of excellence. The other area is cooperation between our 2 militaries. We want to learn from the expertise and capacity building of the Republic of South Africa militaries and Ministry of Defense to see to what extent the militaries in Sierra Leone and security sector can learn from the capacities and training programs to make sure that Sierra Leone is able to develop international peacekeeping capacity building and deployment. Your Excellency, it will interest you to note that Sierra Leone has been recipient of peacekeeping. Now Sierra Leone is a very impressive provider of UN peacekeeping and continental peacekeeping operations across the continent and in other parts of the world. But for us, it's the capacity building that is needed and the professionalism of the peacekeeping deployments that we do. Your Excellency, one important aspect is I look forward today to engage with the private sector and the business community of South Africa. I was so impressed with the extent of the footprints of the South African business community across the continent. You refer to the establishment of 120 South African business established in Ghana, 70 in Uganda. Sierra Leone is the next stop, the next investors' destination of choice from South Africa. I want to work with you to make sure that we achieve that, and through our representatives to make sure that even though we do not yet have a resident high commissioner in Sierra Leone, that we can still start with a business delegation to Sierra Leone. And of course, in my engagement with them, I am going to, together with our honorary council, to present why Sierra Leone is the next El Dorado, the place to be in terms of the opportunities for trade and investment. And here, let us take advantage of what you just said. The continental free trade area is important. South Africa, of course, a leading light in these areas. We as a small country can also benefit from working closely with South African businesses to leverage the opportunities for our own manufacturing industries in the country itself. Your Excellency, let me conclude by commending and commenting on our very strong, cordial, supportive, multilateral levels of cooperation. Again, we work closely, Your Excellency. I have seen you at the African Union, at Foreign Ministers meeting. I've seen you, how you always adequately and proudly represent Africa. For that, I commend you. Your Excellency, I also want to applaud South Africa's leadership on the continent in making sure that we have peace, security, and stability on the continent. There will be no development in the country without peace and stability. So let me use this opportunity, Your Excellency, to encourage South Africa to continue to play the leadership role to support the African Union and ECOWAS response to the challenges and threats to peace and security, not only in West Africa, but in the Sahel region. In particular, I want to continue to encourage you, Your Excellency, that you find it in your wisdom to support the ECOWAS mediation effort for the restoration of constitutional democratic rule in Guinea, Mali, and Burkina Faso. We are in the forefront. We share very long border with Guinea, and it's only 16 minutes flight from Freetown to Conakry. So we are very much concerned about the fire next door, if I can put it that way. But the leadership role of South Africa to lend credibility and support to the ECOWAS mediation effort, but also to the African Union mediation effort, will go a long way to make sure that we achieve some of this. Your Excellency, on the final note, let me commend also your leadership in advocating for increasing presence and voice of Africa, not only at the UN Security Council, but also global governance institutions and global financial institutions. You have consistently stated that this is one way of historically addressing the marginalization and the lack of representation of Africa on the global stage, that we cannot achieve the African Union Agenda 2060, the Africa we want, if we are not on that seat representing Africa. So to this end, Your Excellency, I convey a special message from my President, His Excellency, Dr. Julius Maada Bio, that he appreciates South Africa's support and appreciation of Sierra Leone's leadership as chair and coordinator of the African Union Committee of 10 of Heads of State for the reform of the United Nations Security Council. So let me encourage you, Your Excellency, to continue to support Sierra Leone, to continue to promote the common African position for the reform of the Security Council based on the El Zwini Consensus and the SART Declaration. So let us work together to achieve a united Africa, a united voice, and to speak with one voice for the reform of the Security Council. So also, Your Excellency, let us take advantage of the emerging global momentum created by the prevailing geopolitics around the Ukraine-Russian conflict. And the announcement by at least one or two of the UN Security Council five permanent members of a plan to reform the Security Council. We cannot sit idly by. We have to take advantage of this momentum. Let us together speak with one voice. Let us work together, act as one unit, one objective, one inspiration to capitalize on this momentum for the reform of the Security Council that will once and for all address the historic injustice to Africa in terms of non-representation in the permanent category and the underrepresentation in the non-permanent category. Together, we can make this possible. Together, we can create a new Africa, Africa that will be a test of time for our children and grandchildren. And again, Your Excellency, I thank you for your invite. I thank you for the hospitality accorded to us, and thank you for your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much.